Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sonia Siddiqui, and joining us again today is Colin McLean. Hi, Colin.
Hello, how you all doing?
So we're really happy to have Colin back. He's a very, very busy man, but we always appreciate his webinars with us. So before I head on to Colin doing his presentation, I just want to make sure that everyone is properly connected. So please know that you are all on listen only mode, so we won't be able to hear you, but Colin will be answering your questions towards the end of his presentation. For that, please type your questions into the Q&A tab. And for best results, please use a laptop or desktop computer using Google Chrome as your browser. If you are using mobile devices such as your cell phones or tablets, I recommend downloading the Zoom app for best results. And just to tell you a little bit about ACCES, we've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. We just in the past year alone, we served over 34,000 job seekers. We work with over 2,200 employers. We have over 30 tailored programs that include our sector-specific programs and our pre-arrival program as well. We've got 7 locations in the GTA, and right now we are fully online, so we're using our online location. So if you are interested in job search, we are still working 9 to 5. Just everything is being done online or over the phone. And now I'm going to hand it over to Colin.
Okay. Okay, so here we are now. It's gonna get to this stage here. And give me 1 second. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so today's topic is going to be rise up, stand out, and get hired in 5 simple steps. Hope you guys are all ready to share. Now, this webinar is for those who are feeling stuck in their career. You're feeling defeated in the job search. You're tired of never getting strong leads. Have you guys ever felt that? Because for me, I know when I was unemployed, that's exactly how I felt. I remember just feeling, you know what, it's over, it's not possible, this is the end, I'll never move forward. But when I started working myself, that's when things change. So I'm gonna transition over to the next slide. And so my name is Colin McLean. I'm a career blacksmith. And as a career blacksmith, I mold and sculpt your mind to be successful. So I have experience as an employment specialist, challenge coach, author, motivational speaker. I've got 20 plus years of experience, and I spent half of them working in job development and recruiting. And I was actually probably one of the people you would have sent your resumes to for a certain position. I would have looked through it and then put you in the yes pile or the no pile. Okay, so let's continue. And this is my book here, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Career. Now, this book was created based on the pain that I went through of when I lost my job and I struggled for about 2.5 years, just struggling. How many of you can relate to this, whereby you're sending your resumes out, you're sending maybe 30 resumes in a week, or even like 100, it feels like, in a month, and then you wait for bid and no one's calling you, and then you try again, and then you're not finding anything, you're becoming desperate, you're becoming like angry and frustrated. So when I was able to break the hack and find out how to do it, I quickly found employment, and then I wanted to people not to go through the pain that I went through, because it was a very dark period of my time. And this is what I'm going to teach people of how to be successful. So this is why I wrote the book, to help those grow, overcome, and achieve. So the first hack is you got to rise up. Now, how many of you know about that movie, The Dark Knight, Batman, Dark Knight Rises, whereby Batman has the city, things are going well, and then all of a sudden this character comes in, the villain, his name's Bane, and he takes over the city, beats up Batman, and he breaks Batman's back, and he throws him down a well in some other country and leaves him there pretty much to die with other prisoners. Now, when you're looking to move your career forward, it's normal to feel trapped. How many of you feel can relate to that. You're feeling trapped right now, or you're in a dark, deep pit and you just can't get out. Well, this relates for me as to my time in prison. Now, I don't want to shock you, but I have spent time in prison. And how this happened was, I got to take you back 25 years ago, whereby I just got married. That's not the prison, but I got married. My wife had my beautiful daughter. I took parental leave, came back to work. I was working in import exports. Things were fabulous, phenomenal before I left. And when I came back, that's when things started to change, where we got bought out by an American firm. And I'm thinking, I'm still okay. And you ever been in a job where 1 minute I was traveling, and the next minute, they're cutting back stuff. I can't travel anymore. I'm not doing any training, not doing any teaching. And they have me pretty much chained to my desk, and I'm hating it. But you hate your job a lot, but you stay there. Why? Because you got a spouse, you've got a mortgage, you got bills to pay, so you're not going to jump ship. And I remember things got so bad that I hated my job so much that I remember being happy I was sick. Now, when you are happy you've got the flu or the cold, that's one clear indication you need to move on. But for me, a wife, child, I had in-laws living with me, bills, you want to stay in the game. And I remember just going to work feeling so defeated. And then one day, I buy a bigger place because my in-laws move in with us, and that's been great. But for those who have children, your house is pretty big before the children. When the child's come, you got the stroller, playpen, it gets very, very small and tiny. And my in-laws live in the same room with my daughter. And we bought a place, and it's the place we are right now, you guys, where I'm filming, and things were great. And then I go to work the next day, so 12 hours pass, and I sign the papers and everything, and they call me in the office and say, Colin, I'm so sorry, your 15 years of service will be no more. We love you, but we're making cuts, and you're one of the first off the list. So 1 minute I'm employed, next minute I'm unemployed. So can you imagine what's like? 12 hours earlier, I put a down payment on a house that I could afford. Now I have a house that I can't afford, and the house that I was currently in, the original house, starter home, I can't sell that because for some reason there's other houses being built for cheaper, and I'm stuck carrying 2 mortgages. So can you imagine that? You have 2 mortgages, and for about 3 months, my savings, which I had for my severance, is like goes within a couple of months, and I'm struggling, and I'm sending resumes out, and I find that the prison really was in my mind. It wasn't a physical prison, but the mind prison is the worst, because I remember feeling so down and defeated, not wanting to get out of bed. And I remember wanting to like cry every morning, but you couldn't let your wife see that, or your child. And I would take my daughter to the daycare, and I would do the so-called job search, where I'm staring at the screen, applying for jobs, nothing. So this is going on for like 2.5 years. And to make matters worse, everyone around me is getting either employed, promotions, raises, finding new employment, and I'm the only person on the planet that I felt that I wasn't able to find work. Now, have you all felt this way? I'm just wondering, because when you feel down and defeated, that you got to have to rise up. And for me, I had to go through a lot of soul searching, because what stopped me from moving forward was my pain. Like, I had this pain and belief system that I wasn't good enough, the pain that I was a deadbeat father, the pain that I would never find employment, was not employable. And what you think you are, you actually become you are. So I had to embrace my pain. And the first thing that you got to do is you got to identify, what do you got to do differently to break the cycle of defeat? Because they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. What I was doing was, I was looking on Recopolis and Monster and those job boards and stuff, and applying to jobs. I'm feeling like self-loathing. If I do get an interview, it's a sheer miracle. And I remember going to one interview, feeling so down and defeated. And I walk in there, and I'm passing this car on the front, and it's this brand new Mercedes-Benz, the highest luxury model there is out there. And I know that's a CEO. So I walk into the office, and the CEO tells me, tell me about yourself. And I'm stuttering, I'm mumbling, because again, I'm operating out of the cycle of defeat, thinking it's not possible. And what happens? Bombed interview. I got to go back to my wife and tell her that it didn't work out, but I tried, knowing that, I tried, but I'm just mentally defeated. So when I started to look within and breaking the cycle of maybe exercising, started being networking, started working on myself, things started to change. Okay, so you got to stop for a moment and find out what you got to do to break the cycle. Now, back to the story of Batman, how it relates to myself. So Batman's now, he tried to make the climb out of that well, and he falls, he hurts himself, and he's lying on the stretcher, and he wakes up in a shock. I remember that same feeling. I remember watching the scene thinking exactly how I felt, whereby I'd wake up in a cold sweat thinking it's not possible. And this old blind man next to him says to him that he's got to embrace his pain. He's got to, make the climb. And Batman looks at him and says, you're crazy, because I tried, it didn't work. And he says, make the climb without the rope. Now that's what I had to do. I had to pull myself out of bed and actually get up and say, you know what, it's going to be painful. I'm going to get a lot of rejections, but I'm going to make the climb. And then when you start making the climb to finding like better employment, better yourself, this moves on to hack number 2 is know your why. Now, what it means by know your why is when you know your why, that's going to be the fuel that's going to move you forward. It's going to be the fuel that gets you out of the predicament that you're in. Many times we try to better ourselves, and it's like you go on a diet. You diet for like a week or 2, and it's going great, and then life hits you, and then you start falling back. Same thing happens. You do have, I call it scream monkeys, saying how you can't. And the scream monkeys in the back of your head saying it's not possible, you can't, give up, give up, give up. Someone else has done it, you can't do it. But for you, you got to identify what is your why. Now for me, my why was my family legacy. I knew many people in the past who, close people that I knew, who they had a bad break in life. It didn't work out, and they lived in squalor. Their families didn't work out too well. Families left them, and that was my fear. I didn't want the fear of myself being a failure to my family. I also had a newborn son as well. I knew that I've got to move myself forward. No matter how much the pain is, my why will determine my try. So when your why determines your try, that's going to get you out of the hole, out of the pit, and move you forward. So start thinking now, what is your why? Why do you need to find employment? And it's not like a matter of I want to find a good job, or I want to impress my wife or friends. Like, what is the fuel that's going to get you and keep you in the game? Because when you know your why, you're going to actually move faster than fast. You're going to last longer. You're going to be able to go through the fire and really succeed. But you got to know your why. If you don't know your why, you won't be able to try. Life's going to test you, and that's where the issue happens a lot of times. Now, when I knew my why, that's when I found employment. It was like a flick the switch. I knew that I had to do practice interview questions. I knew how to network. I knew how to get out there. But when I was doing all this, I still felt a bit scared, but it's like failing forward or moving scared forward. I was able to do the impossible, whereby if you looked at my resume, you saw that I wasn't employed for 2 years. Normally, you would hire the person who has recent experience, but I was able to make the jump from impossible to possible because my why was the fuel that got me to the next level. So in closing for that point, know your why. Now, this also brings me to the next. The obstacle is the way. Now, this is through Marcus Aurelius, whereby he talks a lot about, in his meditations, the book he's written. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor many centuries ago, and he's one of the greatest Roman emperors out there. He had a Stoic philosophy. And what he often talked about is the obstacle that you're currently going through is not an obstacle, but something to help you move you forward. Now, for me, my obstacle was I didn't believe myself. My obstacle was I couldn't sell myself to an employer. So when you don't believe in yourself and you can't sell yourself to an employer as to why you're the best person, what do you think happens? That obstacle prevents you. So I actually had to really start working on myself. Now, I start thinking, what is the obstacle that's preventing you to move forward? Is it your experience? Is it language? Is it your self-confidence? What exactly is it? Because once you identify the obstacle, for every obstacle, it's an opportunity for you to improve your condition. When you embrace that obstacle, that's when you're able to get to the next level. But when you keep running away from the obstacle, you keep running away from it, you can't get to it. Now, it reminds me of a Zen story I heard of this Zen king centuries ago, whereby he wants to test his subjects, his people. And he puts this huge boulder in front of the pathway to get into the city. And while people were turning the crops, they would deliver the crops to the city for people to eat and stuff and do barter and services. And he puts this huge boulder with the help of his men, and he blocks the way. And some people, they look at the boulder, they get frustrated, they curse, swear, they move off, and they go back home frustrated. Others, they look at it or they try to climb it, but they just don't, they give up, and they move away. One man comes along, he looks at the boulder, and he looks at it for a bit, tries climbing it, but it's too big for him. And he doesn't give up. He walks away and he comes back, and he actually gets this huge stick from the forest, and he uses it as a something to pivot. So he puts it under it, and he starts pulling it, and then eventually the rock shifts out of place. And under where the rock resided is a purse of gold coins. And the king writes a note saying, because you are able to overcome your obstacle, this will be your reward. So when you're actually able to overcome your obstacle, there's reward in that. And a lot of us forget that. A lot of us actually just stop and look at the obstacle as an obstacle, but the obstacle is really an opportunity. So start thinking now, what do you have to work on, improve your situation? Once you understand what you got to work on, improve situation, then the obstacle becomes the way. Now, hack number 4. Everyone's going to think I'm like lost my mind, but forget the resume. Now, many people, I find, they use the resume as the only sole tool for looking for work. Now, do you remember how I shared with you how I have recruitment background? So many of you would have sent the resumes to me. I would have looked at it for a position, office position or something. And to be honest, this is a study back in 2018, the Ladder study. And they say that the recruiters of that time period would skim resumes on average 7.4 seconds. They did the eye tracking study, and 7.4 seconds is how many time they would spend on a resume. For me, it was about the same time. It was around 8 seconds I would spend on a resume. And if it didn't fit what I was looking for, I would automatically toss it in the garbage or in the pile for another opportunity. So you got to get your resume out of the garbage and into the hands of the right people. And to do that, you're going to have to do 2 things. Many people, as you see in the picture here, there's airplanes going one way. These are the people sending resumes directly to the company, same resume, same thing over and over again. But you got to be the red paper airplane, whereby the percentage sign and the number sign, dollar sign, you got to quantify your successes, and you actually got to internalize it. So when you're out there marketing yourself, you're not just using your resume, you're talking to people about the percentages of how much you've increased. So for example, what do you think's better? I've increased sales in my department, or I increased the sales in my department by 25%, or I saved the company money versus I saved the company $20,000 based on what I was able to create for some plan. That is something you can see, taste, pretty much understand and digest, versus a generic thing of I'm a good worker, I'm a hard worker, I save a lot of money. And you got to be specific. So when you can focus on the percentages, the numbers and the dollars, that's how you can be different from the rest of the people just sending out generic resumes for a position which will only be looked at for 7.48 seconds. Now, the time is, you got to start thinking of the box. Besides the resume, what else could you do to get your resume or get exposure to a potential employer? And that brings me to hack number 5. You're going to have to stand out. Now, I remember when I was sending my resumes out, those 30 resumes a week, I found that many people, what I was doing was I had errors in my resume. I would have the wrong, actually, I remember having the wrong telephone number because I was so stressed, because when you're working, you don't need to do a resume, but when you lose your job, you got to make sure you send a resume out. It was outdated. I had the wrong phone number on some of the resumes. I had spelling mistakes, and I wasn't really standing out. I was, after a while, as a recruiter, what recruiters see, and I've definitely felt that, whereby you've got order to fill one position, you'll get like about 300 resumes coming in for a month, and it's only one position. You're not going to look at all 300 because you got to fill the position. So even though I say the job posting's open for 30 days, I'm only looking at the first week or 5 days. And if I have like about 50 resumes, I make a decision from there. And the rest is just white paper, black text is all you're really seeing. You kind of just get lost, and you got to be able to stand out. Now, it's about not being the Neanderthal, but the salesman. So the Neanderthal was a species of a man way back when, of the caveman, where they were in survival mode. They weren't too bright. They were always struggling, and you see he's using a club. Now, who wants to hire that kind of a person? Many of us, we don't sell ourselves. And when you're the salesman, you've got to know, every salesman's got to know the product or service they have to offer. You have to know the value, they've got to know the need and the pain. Now, when you are that Neanderthal, it takes a form of you not upgrading your skills. Your resume isn't up to par. You haven't done any self-development. You're just a person just looking for a job, struggling, and you're saying, please give me a job, and it doesn't work out. I remember when I was in recruitment, I'd have two types of people come to me. One person was really willing to develop themselves, and they would go the extra mile. Other person would say, give me the job because I need a job. And I remember having that kind of mentality. When I looked at the resume, their skills were outdated. I remember someone brought me a resume and they had that they knew DOS. I'm thinking, we haven't used DOS for, gosh, no, how many years? And he knew WordPerfect. So that's not the kind of person you want. I wanted someone who can maybe say that they know social media, they can type 30 words a minute or even more. But those who were outdated in their skills weren't working on develop themselves. Many times I would find a person who was willing to develop themselves as a salesperson, but maybe their skills were a little bit off. So maybe the resume, their typing was maybe 25 words a minute. I'd say, if you can get up to 35, I can definitely hire you. So I would give them the test to do online, and the Neanderthal person would not do the test, and they would come back and still fail. But the other person's more about selling themselves, would do the test, improve themselves, and get up to like maybe 40 words a minute. They were employed. So you have to be the salesperson and not the Neanderthal. So to stand out, you got to create a amazing online portfolio to showcase your work. Now, many of you, I think, are in, I guess, administrative or white collar kind of sectors. You're not doing like the general labor. But what you got to do, if you want to get into an office or some kind of medical or something, you've got to showcase your work. You can't just use your resume. So on LinkedIn, update your profile, create content of stuff that you're expert in. You can take the stuff you've done back home, create content on that, and then people can start seeing that you become the expert. You got to join and participate in social media groups in industry. If you're not using social media, how do you expect people to know who you are? And then networking. They say that 86% of all opportunities come from networking. And what's interesting is, if you're not out there getting some face-to-face time, like I know with COVID time, we can't do the in-person interactions, but we can do the Zoom calls, what we're doing. If you're not out there, people can't see you, they don't know you, they're not going to be able to really connect with you. And that's where a lot of people fail, whereby they're just sending out the resume, sending it out, not making connections. And I always have a saying, who knows you refers you. So when you get on these kind of Zoom calls, you get on these different platforms of connecting and networking, this is where you can find the opportunities. Now we're going to do like some review time. Who here remembers what the first hack was? The first hack was rise up. And what that meant pretty much is, you may be down and feeling defeated, but to move forward, you're going to have to get yourself up, because no sense trying to send out resumes and try to connect people when you're feeling down. Have you ever felt you met someone and someone's a little bit off on them? You got a word vibe. Now that's because something maybe they had in some internal belief system where they felt down and defeated, and they're coming to you, and then that's not really attractive. You don't want to connect with them. So you got to rise yourself up mentally, spiritually, physically, and start moving forward. Now, number 2 was your why. If you know your why becomes your try. This is what's going to catapult you, be more attractive to employers. It's going to be the kind of thing whereby looking back at the errors and the failures of my life was interesting, because that why actually became my 3rd book that I'm currently editing and should be published in the fall. And it's funny because back then, the failures I experienced, obstacles, were content for my stories. I didn't know at the time, but it fueled me to keep me going, and the why became the try. The obstacle is the way. So when you're able to get around your obstacle and see it as an opportunity, that's another hack, number 3, that you can adapt. Forget the resume, so don't rely on the resume. You got to use other tools in your arsenal to be successful and make connections. And then number 5, if they can't see you, you know, who's going to be able to connect with you? So you got to stand out and don't be the outdated person. You got to be the up-to-date person that is connected and, you know, can adapt and improvise, and that's the kind of person you got to be. Now, I gave you 5. Who here wants 2 additional tips? Anyone? Okay, so I think it's pretty much safe to say that everyone wants 2 additional tips. So these are 2 freebies I'm going to give you. Additional tip number 1 is become a lifelong learner. Now, when you're looking to move your career forward, you got to be able to keep improving yourself. It's like a stage of evolution. If you're not evolving yourself, you're not working yourself, you're not attractive to employers, because what happens a lot of times is if you're the kind of employer that always wants things changing and adapting, and you're not the kind of person to do that, you're not going to be really attractive to the employer. I remember when I was in the import-export business, there was a older lady. She worked there since the 50s and the 60s. And for her, she didn't want to adapt. She didn't want to learn a new program. All she wanted to do was get the boss coffee and send out mail. And then guess what happened? We got bought out by a bigger firm because she never adapted and developed herself. This is what happened, whereby she was the first to go. And then eventually she had to retire, and that's what her story. But when you keep adapting, keep evolving, you're able to overcome a lot of stuff and become more attractive to employers. And the last one is you got to keep moving forward. I believe in Newton's law, where an object in motion stays in motion and an object at rest stays at rest. So when you are actually moving in motion, this is when you're able to have success. They've done statistics on survival, on any situation, in the wild or whatever situation, and they found that those who stayed still usually perished, but those who actually kept moving and trying or eventually got out of the situation. Same thing when you're looking for employment. And I remember feeling down and defeated, but I knew that I had to keep moving forward. You know, that why was to propel me. If I kept moving, kept trying new things, keep maybe trying to meet new people, keep putting myself out there in discomfort, I knew eventually I would succeed. And by keep moving forward, that's exactly what I did. And ironically, that's what's near my website, keepingforward.ca. Whereby forward movement equals success. If you're stagnant, you're not gonna get out there and find opportunities. Opportunities are always moving. You gotta keep running and chasing it. Any questions? I guess I can turn it over to Sonia.
Thank you, Colin. Great presentation. I'm going to ask everyone to type in your questions into the Q&A tab. And Colin, maybe you can have your contact information on at this time on the screen.
Oh, sure. Okay. There's one thing here. There. How's that?
Perfect.
And
So yes, if anybody wants to get in touch, you know how, it's on the screen. And the first question here is from Ritika. What if
Mhm.
you cannot show a specific number on your resume and want to apply for an entry-level position?
Okay, good question. You could make it up, but try to, it's like guesstimate. You can kind of just guess, and you kind of, that's the best way. You may not have that it's 22.567%, but estimating how much do you think you could maybe use. Check with a previous employer, your references. Now, what's really important is I find people put down a reference, but they don't tell the reference what they're doing on the resume. And then the person calls and says, hey, does Ritika do this? And they say, well, I don't remember. So make sure that anything you're putting down, you check with your previous employer, your reference, to make sure that they will say, yeah, I have an understanding, and you're good to go. So you may not have it exactly, but that's what I would suggest.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
no, you can go. Yeah, go.
No, I was just going to go to the next question. There's two questions here
Hmm.
from Sudhir. First question is, how would you suggest increasing networking skill set using social media, which or using LinkedIn or family?
Oh, yeah. So what you have to do is create content. I find content starts conversations. You don't have to do a lot. What I created in the past was a calendar of content. So I would spend like a Sunday afternoon or like Saturday morning just creating content of what I knew in the field. And I would give like maybe 2 or 3 tips. So when I started doing that, I would have a series of maybe 10 articles, and then I would post that on LinkedIn. I wouldn't do it all at the same time, but every Monday I would upload the new article, and then the next Monday upload a new article. So when people start looking at you, they start seeing, hey, this person kind of knows a little bit of something. I would join groups that I was associated with, and that's how you start conversations. A lot of times in groups, people are talking, hey, I have this job opportunity. Someone know anyone? And I would say, yeah, I'm the person. Let me connect with you. Or I refer it to another person. I would like, share, and subscribe to stuff. And when you're always working on stuff, that's how you know that you make connections. Like LinkedIn is really good. Facebook is good. You just have to know the platform you're on. Facebook is more, I guess, social. They do have groups out there. LinkedIn is more of business, but use both. And even Instagram, I think there's a stat out there, they say that more women look on Instagram than men. But if you find something you like, you can share that kind of stuff. So it's like being present. You got to really be the salesman and start selling yourself out there. That's how you increase your network.
Thank you. And second question from Sudhir is, because of the situation right now, how can people try to discover the 80% hidden market? Because I mean, there's,
Mhm.
you can't really meet people. So how would they tackle that situation?
Great question. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You're going to have to join these groups, these chats. That's how you actually find out, and start conversations. Hold Zoom meetings. If there's a group of people, I even say go back to your own culture, whereby, for example, I'm not from India, or I don't speak Urdu, but if I spoke that language, I would look for people who spoke the same language and can communicate and connect with them, because there's more chances of them hiring myself because I speak language versus an outsider like me coming in. So go where your people are at, start conversations, because they're more likely to trust, open up to you versus a foreigner coming in. I would talk about maybe joining groups. Sometimes there's like a coffee time Zoom chats, join those. So if you join different groups, that's where you can start talking about opportunities. And you gotta go with the mindset, because many people make this mistake, is they join a group and they say to the group, help me, help me, help me. I want a job. And that's the worst thing you can do. It's like the desperate person drowning. You never really want to save a person who's drowning and frantically filling their arms. Like what they normally do is they say, throw out the lifeline and bring them in. Because if you swim out to them, you try to hold them, they're going to like pull you down as well, and it becomes a turnoff. So lifeguards, I would say, sometimes I've heard lifeguards had to knock out the person to bring them in. So you don't want to be that flailing person, drowning, panic, help me, help me, help me. You want to be able to maybe offer assistance. Like there's many things that maybe you could point someone in the right direction. You may not have the job for you, but maybe you can point someone in the right direction. I remember one time I was doing a class and I told everyone to stand up and share about what they're looking for. And this one lady said that she's looking for a job as an accountant. And so the lady says, oh my gosh, I won't believe this, but my brother-in-law has a construction firm and it's a small firm and he's looking for an accountant. I just had dinner with him last night. Maybe want to connect with him. Same thing with online. You start these conversations and then maybe you could assist a person with another opportunity. So you always got to be talking, sharing, you know, and that's what you got to do. Go with the mindset of how can I help another person? When you help more people will want to help you.
Thank you, Colin. Next question here is from Jaspreet. Is it wise to mention a course that you've done online on your resume?
Sure, why not? Personally, I prefer people who are developing themselves versus those who are not. I remember when I was unemployed and I was in that deep, dark pit of despair and going to interviews, and they said, we noticed you haven't worked for 2 years. What have you been doing? And a lot of times I couldn't answer. You can't say, I'm looking for work for 2.5 years, because that's an indication something's wrong with you. But when I started developing myself, taking more courses, then that filled the gap. And it's more attractive that you're into developing yourself.
Thank you. And can you briefly talk about what is a targeted resume?
Sure. Okay. So you're looking at the job posting, and if you're looking for like a certain job posting in a certain sector, if you grab 10 of them, they all say the exact same thing. It's just you see the order. So for example, when I was in recruitment and we had to hire a person in an admin role for a architectural firm, one of the first things they said is the person has to have a high typing skill. They got to do 40 words a minute. Another one I looked at, another posting I looked at, they said 45. Another one said 42. Another one said maybe 39 words a minute. So you kind of get a sense of what they're looking for. So you put that first. So if you're looking for a job in the medical field, if you have a certain degree, then you put that first. So you find out, first of all, what are employers looking for and match that. What I was doing, which was incorrect, was I was sending out a resume and I had an import-export background and I'm looking for office work. I'm sending stuff out about how I've insured live animals. No one cares that I insured lobsters or tanks from Ukraine to here, whatever. No one really cares. So they couldn't wrap their head around. But when a company says, I'm looking for a salesperson, if I could talk about my sales experience, I put that up first and the other stuff later. So you got to really grab about 10 resumes for a similar position and start studying what comes first, what comes second, and then tailor your resume. If you're applying for like 31 positions, you know, you're going to have to probably do 31 different resumes, like slightly tweak it, move it up one or down, but you got to tweak it. Because remember, it's only less than 8 seconds you've got to catch an employer's attention.
Awesome, thank you. Next question here is, how can you stand out during a virtual interview, which is probably what's happening everywhere right now?
Okay, the joke is wear pants. Many people.
It's not a joke. You should really
I've seen it before,
that.
right?
Very good advice.
Know your surroundings. So I'm going to open up my, can I show my screen? Yeah, I'm going to show you my screen here. Can you see what okay, so you can see the back here, right? It looks like, right? So you know it's books and stuff. Make sure that your area surrounding looks proper, okay? That's the first thing. I remember a guy, I did the illustrations for another book for a gentleman, and this is way back when, but every time I had a Zoom conference call with him or video chat, I could see he was in the his wife's in the closet. I would see his wife's underwear, undergarments, his clothes hanging in the back, and it wasn't professional, and it was really distracting talking to him because Freddie was oblivious. So I would find an area that's quiet, find an area that looks really well. Be prepared, be confident. I also tell people show up early on the call, like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes early. I have something to bring. Don't be sitting there like your mouth is just like covered. You don't know what to say. You're ums and ahs. You're not participating. Be the person and take charge. Don't be overbearing, but have the confidence, know what you're going to bring, what they're talking about, and add value. That's how you stand out. But if you're being silent on the call, not saying anything, it's like, yeah, you're kind of forgotten. So that's how you stand out. So by working yourself and knowing the topic and becoming more of an expert in the topic and do your research, ask questions, having a good background like this, then that will help.
Thank you. All right, I'm just going to go to the next question here. We've answered a lot of these questions already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there's lots of praise for you, Colin, so thank you for the
Thank you. Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, great question here. How do you get over the question about Canadian experience?
Oh God, that drives me nuts. Reason why it drives me nuts is I remember being in recruitment, and someone would say I would have an employer, and I'd say I found this great person. For example, actually, it's a true story. This one lady was from India, and she worked in the bank. I'm not talking the teller. She worked as like the second in command for the president of the banking of a bank in India. She comes over here, and then I take her resume to an employer. Say, hey, I found this great woman. She speaks different languages. She's great. And it says, do you have Canadian experience? Now, last time I checked with banks, there is a debit and a credit transaction. Deposit, take out. It's not really much of rocket science. Once you understand that, you can do it around the world. But they wanted someone with a Canadian experience, and they didn't want to hire her. And she was devastated. But when I marketed her resume to another employer who was more open, that's when he says, oh, she's got international experience. That's phenomenal. So how you get around the experience is you may have to actually take a job that's not exactly up to your par, but you're only staying in there for like maybe 6 months. Get the so-called Canadian experience and leave. It's easier to find a job when you have a job than it is to not have a job. I do apologize about this whole Canadian experience, but there's some employers are not, they haven't seen the big picture. For me, I try to go with someone who's adaptable, more experienced. But if you encounter consistently, do you have a Canadian experience? Do you have a Canadian experience? Volunteer your time with something. I would even reach out to your own culture group and maybe work with them on maybe their own business, help them out a little bit. Yeah, you may do it for free for a little bit, but you can say, yes, I have the Canadian experience, and you use it as maybe the volunteer. Don't tell them you didn't get paid, but that's how you build the experience. Don't stay in long in that job, because once you stay in there long in like a not so paying job, then you're stuck for a while, right? But get in for about maybe 3 to 6 months, get the experience, and then move on.
Thank you, Colin. Next question here is, we keep saying that continuous learning is the way to go, but wouldn't that make an employer think that the candidate is too overqualified?
No, well, it comes down to targeting your resume. So you do have to work sometime. You can't be a lifelong student going, I'm always in school, right? Like you gotta bring in the bills. But while you are working, take more courses, because what happens a lot of times is opportunity comes at a company and says, did anyone know how to do X? Well yeah, because I've taken courses and I was able to do that. So for me, example, when I was in the import exports, they needed someone to design courses. Now, luckily for me, I was taking course design and I was able to design stuff, share with them, and they saved the company like thousands of dollars because they just used me in-house and I was able to travel and do stuff. But if I didn't have that learning of course design, now I did import exports. Like there's nothing in relation to import exports and shipping commodities that art and graphic work has anything to do. They're two separate worlds, but because I had that skill set, I was able to make myself more sellable to my manager, and that's what worked. So always be a lifelong learner.
Thank you. And well, is it true that employers start letting go of their employees after they're 50?
No. It's like, do you have the value? Like, there's some employers do, but that's not the right employer you should be with. It's a matter of, are you growing yourself? Are you add value? Or you're just coming in and you're just doing your 9 to 5 and you're leaving, not adding value. Usually the ones which don't add value are the ones that first to go. That's pretty much the answer. If you find you've got employers that's cutting people left, right, and center, then there's something that's better for you. But if you're adding value and you're always contributing, then why would you let them go? It's like if you had a really great car and it worked really well and it always kept, why would you get rid of it for like a shiny new car that it only worked for a bit? That's one of the things. Yeah, you want to make it look good, but if you have a car that works well, it's efficient. Or it's like having a horse on a farm, and just because the horse is 5 years old, you want to get rid of it because you want to get a brand new pony to pull the plow. Like, you can still use stuff. So don't worry about age, worry about what value are you bringing or what pain are you solving for the employer on a regular basis.
Thank you. And I know you talked about this, but again, if you can go over and give some tips on how to deal with low self-confidence, not being able to believe in yourself, not able to communicate because you're shy.
What I do is, again, it comes down to your why equals your try. And I remember feeling down and thinking, how's this helping me? Me feeling down right now, situation better or making it worse? And 99.999% of the time, it made the situation worse. So I've identified this is the obstacle I'm dealing with. So I got to change that, and I have to surround myself with positive people. Now, many times, what happens a lot of times is you're feeling down and defeated, and that's as a father, I can share the story whereby when you're down, you're not necessarily the most warm and friendly, cuddly person to be around because you're thinking, my God, I got bills to pay, I'm behind in stuff, I'm in overdraft. And I found that that kind of negative attitude, for one, doesn't attract people to you. Two, it also affects the family whereby the children are watching you. And children don't learn by you telling them stuff. They learn by what you do. So if you're saying to the kids, you can be the next prime minister, and you are so like down and defeated and bitter, that child's going to say, you know what, it's not going to be possible because life is about being down and defeated. So you always got to know that you're always being watched by your family members. And if you find that your family members are not helping you, then, maybe you need to limit your interaction. I remember there were some family members that I had who were like negative, and they weren't helping the situation. To call me every day. You finding work yet? What's going on? If we can't find work, and I was stressed. So when I stopped communicating with them or limit my communication with them, I was able to find my center, my peace, because you got to first love yourself to give of yourself. If you don't truly love yourself, if you think yourself as like the villain or something horrible, you're not going to be attractive for opportunities to come your way. So first of all, you gotta find your inner peace and then do whatever you can to do that. I found working out for me helped, eating a little bit healthier, taking some time for myself, not focusing all the time of like, I'm in stress as well as me, but finding like, this is only going to be a short time of life. It's going to get better. And when you think that it's going to get better, it always does get better. You just got to keep at it and hold on.
Thank you. And do you have any advice for people who are switching careers?
Yeah. Good question. Switching careers, it can be scary, but never leave a job unless you have a job. So what I would do is, if you want to switch a career to something else, look at what the new career is offering, the skill sets, and start developing that first to make sure that you have all the skill sets. So for example, if you were switching career from maybe a doctor to an architect, for example, you wouldn't you should probably start learning about a bit of drafting, learning a bit about buildings and stuff before you say, you know what, I'm going to quit my job and tomorrow I'm going to be an architect. So do your research first, and then start networking within that community, and that's how you start transitioning. But I remember there's many people I helped before in the past whereby they left their job and they didn't have a backup plan. They wanted to have this dream to be X, and because they did that, they weren't prepared. I'm always a believer that luck favors the prepared. So prepare yourself first, then inch your way into the field. Does that
Thank
help?
you. Yep, I bet it does.
Mm.
Are there any other platforms other than LinkedIn for networking?
Yeah, you could use Facebook groups. You could use Zoom. Some companies have groups. Even like Employment Access. Like you guys have a conversation connection kind of a workshop.
Sorry, what?
Do you guys have like a connection where people all meet together?
We have mentoring workshops
Yeah,
where,
mentoring. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah. So exactly, like mentoring clubs are good. So I would join like a mentoring club, because if you find someone who to mentor you, they would have maybe more access to opportunities, or they'd be able to give your resume to another contact of theirs. So join mentoring clubs. Join stuff like that, mentoring, connecting with people, associations. Look up associations that your career is in, and then join those associations. That's a good way to do it.
So let's say someone came to Canada, right before COVID hit and has nothing on their resume. Would that look bad on them?
No, you've got something on your resume. You just have to tailor it to. Don't really say that I only have my experience from another country. You can talk a little bit of it, but don't showcase that I'm not from here and I have no Canadian experience, because that's going to be hard for yourself. So you talk about but you can do the functional resume where you're putting all the skills that you have first, and then on the bottom you put where exactly you worked. So that's like on page 2 of the resume. But if you're putting in that you only done this job and it's in this country, first off the bat, that's going to go to the bottom of the pile. So functional resume for those who don't have necessarily Canadian experience, try that, and always network. Do not rely on the resume as your sole source for finding work.
Thank you. And how do you find groups on LinkedIn?
Enter a name, like what group you're looking for. Yeah, just Google it. If you're looking for what group do you want to find, is it the group for professionals? Is it the group for cat herding? Like you got to know what you want, and then enter it, and eventually you'll start going down a bit of the rabbit hole and you'll find exactly. But if you don't enter anything, you're not going to find it, right? Not every group will be the best group, but if you don't join something, you won't get it, pretty much. Look at other people's profiles on LinkedIn. What groups are they part of? Why do you want to connect with them? Go in that group, connect with them. That's what you got to do.
Thank you. And are Canadian employers open to receiving LinkedIn messages from potential candidates?
Yeah, I can't really answer that. I would say probably yes. It depends on the person, right? Not everyone wants to be inundated, but that's why you've got to make yourself known. Because if you're just sending a LinkedIn message, hey, hire me, you have no profile, you've got no content out there, then your chances may be a little bit less. But if you got to be able to edge your way in there, have something of value to offer people. That's the best thing. Don't go there saying, hey, give me a job, because that's just scares people. But be prepared, have content, or even share an article. Find out what their pain is. What I used to do in my network is I would find articles they may be interested in. I'd listen to what they're saying. Like, I remember there's people who maybe are like golfing. I met them at some event somewhere, and they said, I love golfing. I'd find this article, hey, this interesting article, how to improve your golf swing. You may want to take a look at this. Nothing on my end. I'm just giving you something for free. They're more likely to remember you versus you saying, hey, give me a job, hire me, I'm the best person. You see the difference? It's like romancing, right? It's like going on a first date. You got to romance with the flowers. you know, have the conversation, get to know you, build the trust, versus just saying, hey, I'm here.
Thank you. And let's say you're working with a recruiter, but you're not hearing from them and they're not responding to any of your follow-ups. What should you do? Should you keep chasing them, or what's the
No, you
best
just
plan
move
here?
on. You can chase them, but there's more recruiters out there. You know, so don't rely on this one recruiter. I remember being in recruitment where the challenge I had, the reason why I couldn't return calls was the employer, which is our client, was not returning our calls. And I remember we had this one guy, he drove me nuts, and he had this design firm. And what he would do is he'd say, hey, I need a receptionist. Find me a receptionist. I need the person by Friday. I'm thinking, cool. So I put out the call out, go through my resumes, the ones which I looked at 8 seconds, the ones that from before, and I find like at least 3 of them. I go, these are the ones. What do you think? Send it to him. I'll get back to you. I'll think about it. I don't know. I'm kind of busy right now, but I'm thinking, you just told me you needed this person urgently, urgently, urgently. I moved mountains in the heavens for you, and you're going to drag your feet. So then I had people calling me, and I felt bad because I couldn't give them an answer because the employer did not get back to me. Or what they would do is they would hire maybe not one recruiter, but maybe 10 different recruiting firms, and they would put out a call out, and whoever came first they would take, and then not call other people back. So you got to really, it's like planting seeds. You got to spread your seeds out there. And when you're planting a garden, you don't just put one seed in and expect it to grow. You put many seeds, and that's what you got to do for moving your career forward.
Thank you. And you know, when you were talking about sharing articles on LinkedIn, should they be yours? Should you be creating your own content, or are you just sharing what you've seen and you like it?
Both. It's better if you create your own content because it makes you more the expert. But if you find something of interest, share it with people, right? And then get sort of discussion. Not like creating content is it's the kind of thing you got to sit down and really, you know, do your research and really wrap it out. Some people don't have that skill set, or they're not there yet. But yeah, so look at content, share the content, create your own if you can, and then share that. And there's sites like Pixabay where you can actually, it's a free site, and get royalty-free images, and you can put that in the post.
Thank you. And where are we here? So I'll take one last question. So sometimes, you know, you've got everything the job is asking for, everything matches, you know, you still don't end up getting a job. Is it because references stand out more?
References? No, it can be anything. Like maybe you're just the person that applied a little bit late. You applied in week 2, and they already made a decision week 1 or day 3. It could be, maybe a lot of times it's employers, what they do is when they're looking for people, they'll actually send a call, they'll put a post up, but they'll ask internally, do you know anyone? And they'll most likely take someone from the corporation family. So for example, would you, if you were putting a call out for, if you're a company and you're putting a call out for a certain role, and then the receptionist, who's been great, phenomenal, comes to work every single day on time, early, goes the extra mile, and she says that her brother is looking for work, would you take the white paper and black text that you receive an email from, or would you more likely go with her brother? Because usually birds of a feather flock together, your vibe germs your tribe is the same kind of person, so it's more trust. So that's why you got to get out there and network so people become familiar with you, so then they can offer opportunities on your behalf.
Thank you so much, Colin. And thank you everyone for watching today and asking these great questions. And I'm glad everyone else was able to hear the answers as well. And you know, you have Colin's information in front of you. I'm going to switch screens now. And Colin, is there something you'd like to add before I take over?
Pretty much, you know what, keep the faith. You can definitely do it. I'm telling you, as mom would always tell me, my late mother, yes, you can, and I know you can, okay? That was when I was feeling like down defeated as a child, having a learning disability. Once you believe in yourself, your why becomes your try, and you can definitely do it. Just keep at it, don't give up, okay? Keep moving forward.
That is great advice. Thank you so much, Colin. That was very nice and it's so positive. I hope everybody's feeling the same way as I am. I'm like ready to take on this day. So thank you again, Colin. You know what I love about Colin is extremely positive. Every time we've talked to him, he's always had a smile on his face and he just keeps going and he's always doing so many different things, building his portfolio every single day. So get in touch with him and, you know, get inspired. So thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Colin. And just to let you know, our next webinar is on Monday, July 13th. About entrepreneurship. So, you know, if you're interested in opening up your own business, check it out. And just so everyone knows, you can still register for our upcoming webinars. And you can also check out our ACCES e-resource. We've got tons of resources on there. We're continuously adding more up there because we know the need right now. People are just reaching out online for everything. And if you're interested in, you know, just practicing your English speaking skills, we run online Talk English Cafe about, I think it's maybe around 4 to 6 times a week. So sign up for those classes, go on our website, check it out. And again, if you want to speak to an employment consultant, some people were asking if somebody can help them with their resume. We for sure can. Reach out to us and an employment consultant will be able to help you. Just call your closest ACCES location for that. And for people who are still overseas and have their PRs and you're interested in coming to Canada or are moving soon, you can email cec@accessemployment.ca for more information to see how they can start helping you with your job search before you arrive in Canada. And again, thank you very, very much. You can follow us on our social media like we talked about today. We are very active on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you want to find out what's happening at ACCES, it's always posted there. So thank you everyone for watching and a very big thank you to Colin as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.